Hello, Scott, and thank you for joining us. And could you just please introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are?
My name's Scott. I have been sober for it's actually 18 months next week. I have been kind of on my own little sober journey for that long. It's really weird saying 18 months actually. It's quite a long time when you really think about it. I started working with OutLife last summer, and basically just kind of how it helping to support in terms of writing pieces and just around sobriety and living a life that's not got alcohol in it anymore.
So that's A, congratulations, and B, I guess the reason we wanted to talk about sobriety at the moment is because of the COVID-19 crisis, and what that means for people who with substance abuse issues. So people are finding they have a lot of free time. There's no one, everyone's structure has gone from their lives. They don't have to get up and go to work at an office necessarily. And this presents a lot of potentially difficult situations for people who have problems with drink. So I guess my first question is, what kind of issues do you see people within the sober community encountering, or people who are still struggling with alcohol abuse?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at that. As you say, I think you've got the kind of people that are sober and have been sober for a long period of time, or what I would call a long period of time. So probably I would say 6 months upwards. And I would say that those people are probably relatively safe in that they are confident in their decision, and they know kind of what they need to do to keep themselves in check. Then I think you've got like another portion of people that are probably either still questioning their relationship with alcohol, and were doing so before COVID-19, or they've just newly given up. And I would say that those are the people that are probably highest at risk at the moment, because they haven't had long enough for those new kind of routines and behaviours to bed into their lives to become normality. And it's such a hard time right now that they don't necessarily, or might not have been able to kind of perfect their, as I would call it, a sober toolkit, and things that they can lean back on to support them during this time. So I think it's quite a tough time for everyone, but I think especially those that are have newly given up or were considering giving up, because I think if people were considering giving up and then something like this happens, now more than ever is the time when people are just going to go, no, it's okay, do you know what, I'll just carry on drinking because everyone else is doing it. And that's very problematic, because those people maybe now will take another year to get back to a point where they need to or feel comfortable to reassess their relationship with alcohol.
We've already all seen the social media posts of people drinking at home. People, funny videos of people, pouring out large glasses of wine at 1 p.m. And I think we can all laugh with them, but also that is problematic for some people. And you talk a little bit about what it is about home and drinking and the lack of structure that is quite so difficult.
Yeah, I think it's exactly as you just said. It's the lack of structure. I think as soon as you remove routine and you remove that kind of the part of you that means that you've got an organised life and somewhere to be, especially for those that are maybe used to having a kind of Monday to Friday 9 to 5. I think we see it, for example, on a Friday night. As soon as you remove the fact that someone's got work the next day, all hell breaks loose. And especially in the LGBT community, it's a night for everyone to kind of celebrate, and everyone kind of just lets loose, sometimes from Friday night all the way through to Monday morning. And I think that in isolation at a weekend is problematic enough. But then to now extend that and completely remove all of the boundaries and social structures that we're used to, and basically saying to everyone, do you know what, for however many people it is now that are going through this awful time of potentially being furloughed or losing their jobs, there is no structure anymore, and there are no rules. And as soon as there are no rules, people default into quite negative behaviours. And I think you've got two different types of people. There are people that will naturally lean into more positive behaviours and realise that actually, as a person, they need to be very self-aware and know themselves to know well enough that they could fall into those maybe negative behaviours in terms of drinking too much or smoking too much, or not going out and taking that exercise that's being recommended and just staying in your house all day, because that's as destructive sometimes as well. And then you've got those other types of people that won't be self-aware enough to do any of that. And will just let loose, and I think that's where there's quite a problem. And I think that what you kind of spoke about there in terms of what we see on social media, memes and stuff are great, and I mean, I create memes as part of my online identity, but I think where they become problematic is when they're supporting this narrative that drinking all day and smoking all day and potentially using drugs all day is acceptable. That it isn't, and it's just creating this kind of undercurrent of where people maybe who are struggling or were struggling before this or are newly struggling now won't necessarily identify that they have a problem because it's becoming so normalized on social media and through kind of general conversations that are happening. So I think that's where it's kind of quite problematic, and I think we probably just need to be quite aware that yes, okay, that rhetoric can be quite funny. And we as a culture of people tend to gravitate towards those kind of behaviours, and that's something that I try to focus on in some of the work that I do. But I think we do still need to be aware that actually, if you are getting up every day and you're consuming alcohol, regardless of what time it is, every day is way above the government average, and it can still be harmful for you. So I think it's just really important that we monitor that and keep a check on each other.
So there's going to be some people who are watching this who are thinking, you know what? Well, I've had a glass of gin in my hand every day for the past week, and I feel fine, and this is okay. Where do you think people should start questioning their intake, or where's that sort of liminal point where people might need to start thinking, oh, is this problematic? Is there even a set point? Because surely that's going to be different for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. I think so. One of the things I've always said right from the beginning of since I gave up is, like, I don't have a problem with people that drink alcohol. Like, my partner drinks alcohol. I've got absolutely no problem with that. And I think if you have a healthy relationship with alcohol or drugs, if that's your choice, and you know your limits and you know your boundaries and you consume those things to a degree that you find is useful or healthy enough for you and doesn't cause you problems, then I would say crack on. Like, I'm not here to judge or to tell anyone what's right or wrong, and I truly believe that everyone needs to find that for themselves. For me, I was way overstepping that boundary, and that's why I had to make the decision to stop drinking. I think where right now we need to be just really super careful is that if you're drinking every day and you are not seeing any impact to your health, and I mean your mental health mainly as well, because let's not forget that alcohol is a depressant. So if you are consuming alcohol every day and you wake up every day and you feel fine and you're totally comfortable with your relationship with alcohol and it's not having a detrimental impact to you or how you're feeling, then I would say, okay, fine, that's up to you, and just keep an eye on that. And if you feel like at any point that there is an imbalance, then maybe that's when you should start looking at it. If, however, you're waking up and every day you can feel that there's this black cloud over you and you maybe aren't aware that, I don't know, you had a quarter of a bottle of gin last night and maybe you do the same again the night after, and then slowly but surely your mood gets worse, the chances are those things are linked. And that's where I think that we just need to be really, really careful, and people should be aware for their friends and family, whether they live with them or not, to check in with them. And if you do start to notice that someone's maybe struggling a little bit, then just kind of maybe gently suggest to them that maybe they should cut down on drinking alcohol, or make it every other night rather than every night, and just keep an eye on each other. Like, I don't think it's fair for anyone to judge and say that no one should be drinking right now, because that's absolutely not realistic. And I don't think that's fair, because, as I said, some people have a perfectly healthy relationship with alcohol and can consume it and enjoy it, and they can go to bed and wake up the next day and feel fine. It's the people that can't do that and don't do that, where there's that grey area. And I think that there's a risk that those people could slip through the gaps right now because they don't feel supported. And as we said before, like, that kind of social media rhetoric out there of it being okay is almost justifying it. And I think that that's the bit that we just need to be aware of.
So obviously we're living in exceptional circumstances at the moment, and some of the things that you would probably advise people to do previously, before this pandemic and this outbreak happened, are going to be different to what you'd advise them now. What do you think people can do within the confines of the way our lives look now to try and, if they do think they have an issue, a developing issue, to get things a bit more under control?
I think, as ever, like if you feel that you are dependent, then immediately you need to seek medical professional's advice. Like I definitely can't give advice on that. And there would be ways to do that. I mean, you can check the NHS website and stuff like that.
Well, do you want to clarify something for us quickly, which is that I believe there's a difference here between alcohol dependence and alcohol abuse. You could
Yeah.
clarify that for us. That would be great.
Yeah, so I think when I refer to kind of alcohol dependent, dependency is when you are physically dependent on the drug that you're using. So that is that if you stopped consuming alcohol, you would start to get some side effects. That could be that you start to be sick or various different things. And to stop alcohol when you're alcohol dependent is actually very dangerous. So the reason that I say seek a medical professional is because if you do need to come off of alcohol, if you are a dependent, you should seek medical advice, because you can do yourself more damage if you go cold turkey, and you might need some medical and you might need some drugs that they might be able to give you that can support you to wean you off. Whereas alcohol abuse, which is probably more in the context of this conversation, is different in that could be that for you as a person, you would define abuse as drinking every night of the week. Some people might not, and I think that that's where alcohol abuse is probably, the government would say that it was anything over the limits that they prescribe. And I would probably have to agree with that, but also for everyone to monitor it on their own terms as well. And as I said, kind of keep an eye on it.
Going back to where we were before, what things people can do in the current circumstances?
I think for me, and I think that this is something that a lot of people can look at is routine. So for me, I am fortunate enough that I haven't been furloughed or anything, and I do have a job. But even at weekends, when I'm getting up on a Saturday or Sunday, I'm kind of waking up almost around the same time, maybe an hour later. But I am still kind of creating a list of things for me to do for myself and things that I can achieve for that day. And I think routine is really important because it gives you the structure. And if you kind of self-impose that structure, it can be a little bit weird, and it can be, don't get me wrong, you can wake up and write the list and then go, do you know what, actually, let's not do any of it for the afternoon, but we'll do all the stuff in the morning. You still get that sense of achievement because you have still ticked some things off your list. And they can be like really basic things like cleaning your bathroom or sorting out the cupboard that you've always wanted to do and you haven't. I think there's just creating that bit of routine kind of gives you that bit of stability, and it starts you off, I would say, on the right foot. And I would definitely say that for me, that's what's holding me steady at the moment. I would say absolutely use your opportunity to take that walk outside of your house or flat if you get the opportunity. I think that's the reason that guidance has been left in, and that's why we're still allowed to go out for that one piece of exercise a day. It doesn't mean that you need to become an Olympic athlete and run kind of 15 miles a day. It just means for you to go out and be in nature and get some fresh air and change of scenery. I think drinking loads of water, like if your brain becomes dehydrated, it starts not to function the way that it should. And the first things that will happen there are kind of signs of anxiety and depression, regardless of your mental state. If you are newly sober and you are kind of looking for ways to stay sober during this, I think find connections online if you can. There are some really, really great resources out there. So you've got Queers Without Beers, which is a group run by Club Soda, which actually this week I've just launched. I'm going to be hosting a weekly online social with them on Thursday nights, so that kind of sober queer people can stay connected. And the sober community online in general is so strong and so supportive, and that is on all mediums: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And I think that just by making some other sober connections and relating to other people that are going through what you're going through will hold you safe and hold you steady during this.
Fantastic. Well, that's been great. Thank you very much for talking to us, Scott. And we hope to be speaking to you again soon.
Yeah.